What's up, guys? Welcome to G Whiskey. I'm Jeff. Today we're reviewing the Roseisle 12. It's an interesting one. Stick around. Okay, Roseisle 12 today. This one is part of Diageo Special Releases for 2023, so last year. And this one, since it came out, has been pretty well received, although it hasn't been without criticism. At this point, it pretty much comes with the territory, but Diageo Special Releases are always accused of being too expensive, which is absolutely fair. But then you have these hypocrites out there who year after year complain about the prices and still go out and buy more of them. Me. I do that. I do have a long history of whining about these releases, but the moment a new open drops, I'm always the first one sprinting to the shop. Because listen, I am a lot of things, but disciplined and principled, no. So, Roseisle 12, what do we need to know about this stuff? Well, surprisingly, this is actually the first release from this brand, from this distillery, so it's their inaugural bottling, which is interesting because this is already 12 years old. Normally with new distilleries, they'll try and put out a release as soon as they can just to try and get some money back on their investment, but I guess Diageo doesn't really feel the need to do that. I'm guessing, financially speaking, they're comfortable. Anyway, these guys are a huge Speyside distillery, and they were actually designed to make all different sorts of whiskey, and the idea behind that, I'm told, is that if they ever fall behind or if there's any problems at any other distilleries, they can use these guys as blend filler or I guess an alternative single malt. Basically, anytime there's a gap, this brand can step in. These guys have both copper condensers and stainless steel condensers. They play around with mashing and fermentation techniques, so they can make whiskey that's on the lighter side, the heavier side. They'll be playing around with a lot of different styles, I would imagine, which is fun. So I would guess that the next Roseisle release that we get would be in a different style just to show the versatility of the distillery, but that's speculation. As for this one here, in terms of our maturation, this has been matured in first fill and refill bourbon casks and nothing else, which for a guy like me sounds very promising. And I think that's pretty much all I know about this stuff. Diageo is not typically a wealth of information, but this being cask strength, 12 years old, inaugural bottling, fully bourbon matured, could be excellent. So let's see if it is. Let's jump into our review. In the meantime, if you'll kindly leave a like down below, that'd be greatly appreciated. So we've got a big ABV at 56.5% here. As with Diageo, they don't really tell us too much, so I would imagine this being cask strength is probably not chill filtered, and I will give them the benefit of the doubt and assume that it's not colored either, although don't hold me to that. So I do like the look of this bottle. Diageo Special Releases are always very eye-catching bottles. This one's no different. This one's called the Origami Kite. It's a little bit more toned down. It's not quite as gaudy as some of the other releases, which I guess I do appreciate. I think it looks great. 4.5 out of 5. Obviously, this one does not tell us if it's non-chill filtered or natural color. It does give us the casks, though. It says first fill bourbon and refill casks. I think earlier I said it's all bourbon matured. They just say first fill bourbon and refill casks. There might be some other stuff in the mix as well. But yeah, in terms of details, not a lot, but they do give us the casks, and the bottle looks good. On the nose, this is bright, fresh, floral, and clean. It's actually quite floral, so like white florals, orange blossom, that kind of thing. Also very, very fruity. I get red apples, I get green apples, there's green mangoes, green grapes, a lot of greenery in here. We also get baklava, like pistachio, dessert type stuff. There's plenty of maltiness in here. I get some Vicks Vapor Rub. This is very bright, fresh, summery, and clean. It's a beautiful nose. On the palate and finish, this is full, spicy, fresh. It's very complex. There's a really nice earthy maltiness to this. Again, plenty of fruits. I get red apples, green apples, apple vinegar, lemon lozenges, pears, green mango, underripe pineapple, or just tart, underripe fruits in general. There's also some earthy notes, some grassy note. There's some chamomile tea in here. This gives us a long fingerish with some soft, lingering vanilla. Beautiful stuff. Okay, so we'll start with, wow. This is fantastic whiskey. It's not going to be for everyone. So if you want a sherry bomb, or if you're a peat head and you want this big peaty moment, that's not going to be this. This is about the distillate. It's very distillate driven, and it's very bright and fresh and clean. And if that's your style, you will love this. What's interesting here is that, of course, it is a Speyside distillery, but for me, it hits more like a lowland distillery, maybe a highland distillery, in the sense that it's very delicate in terms of its flavors. But given that we have the higher ABV and just the fact that I think this is a very high quality distillate, we get some wonderful intensity and complexity here. In terms of texture, we have a great mouthfeel here. It's oily, it's robust, it's weighty, and that's more just in terms of the delivery of flavor itself, which is an interesting contrast to what the actual flavors are, because the flavors are more, as I said, delicate and fresh and bright and clean. And I'll admit that works for me because that's the kind of whiskey that I really enjoy these days. This is beautifully tart and bright with the green apples and the green mango and the underripe fruits. Just works. This is fruity without being too sweet. It's got that vibrant, summery, refreshing quality that I love. This is a whiskey that's not too woody. It doesn't lean too mature. I wouldn't call it young. It certainly isn't young because there's no heat to it, but there is a certain sharpness that for me works perfectly. And if you much prefer older, softer, rounded whiskeys, or if you prefer particularly sweet whiskeys, the tartness and the sharpness might not work for you because this is a very, I want to say twangy, but I'm not sure if twangy is a word. I think it is. Again, I do want to stress there is no burn here. The 12 years in casks has softened it enough. And we also have this beautiful soft vanilla note that kind of rounds out the more extreme edges of the whiskey. So hot, no. Sharp, yes. Finally, I think the finish here is incredible. It gets a little bit earthy. Whiskey Luck in his review mentioned tea tannins, and that's in here too. And the vanilla I just mentioned, that stays with us throughout the finish. And it's a beautiful vanilla. It's very understated. The vanilla is not stating too much. So I think a lot of people will genuinely enjoy it if it matches your style. So if your style is stuff like Glencadam 10 or maybe Compass Box Orchard House, if you want that style of whiskey, but you want it cranked up to 11 with more intensity, more complexity, and more nuance, this is the one for you. Personally, I'm loving this stuff. Obviously, I've talked about how like fresh and vibrant it is. I think this is a great summertime whiskey. It's basically sunshine in a bottle. And here in Taiwan, sure, summer is winding down, but it is still hot outside, and this stuff slaps. So my score here is 91. This is one of my favorite new discoveries in a while. And what's funny about this one, I'd actually tried it before. I tried it at a bar after trying a few other drams, and I was just on my way out and had a quick sip of it. And at the time I liked it, but I didn't love it. But it wasn't until my buddy Lester lent me his bottle. By the way, thank you, Lester. But it wasn't until my buddy lent me his bottle that I really spent some time with it, and that's where it started to shine for me. This is my favorite release from Diageo Special Releases last year. Of course, I didn't have all of them, but I had a lot of the big players. I had the Oban, I had the Talisker, I had a dram of the Lagavulin, but I didn't spend much time with it. But out of the ones that I did try from last year, this is easily my favorite. So I like it more than Oban, and that hurts me to say that. Thing is, I do have to be careful here because I just gave this a very high score and a whole lot of praise. I'm sure someone's going to go out and end up saying, oh, gee, whiskey's full of nonsense, and he hyped this up, and it's one of these YouTube hype bottles, and I prefer my Lagavulin 12. As far as I'm concerned, this is not really comparable to a Lagavulin 12 or a Talisker or an Oban. You might have your preferences, certainly, and that's understandable, but this is a completely separate category of whiskey, and I've described it as best I can in this video. And it's just a matter of knowing what you're signing up for. So if the description fits and you're interested in this bottle, I think it's worth checking out. I think it's, as I said, one of my favorite recent discoveries, and it's highly, highly recommended. Now, before we jump into value, I do want to say a quick thank you to all my patrons and channel members. Guys, thank you so much for all your support. And if you want to help out, if you want to help keep the channel financially sustainable and independent, there are a number of ways that you can help. I have both Patreon and PayPal linked down below. Anything and everything helps. And again, massive thank you if you're already supporting the channel. Now let's see about value. So as always with Diageo Special Releases, value is where things get a little bit tricky. I think most people like this whiskey. A few people really love this whiskey. I'm in the latter group. But I think across the board, most people agree that it's too expensive, certainly in other markets. I know when this was first released in the UK, it was around 120 pounds. Granted, it's not worth that. Even if the whiskey is absolutely delicious, which it is, the fact that this is an unproven 12-year-old, granted at cask strength, 120 pounds, man, that's a big ask. Luckily here in Taiwan, this one only cost me the equivalent of 83 pounds. so I'm lucky. Which works out to about 110 US, which still sounds high for a 12-year-old, but as far as I'm concerned, it's worth every single penny of that price. This is such honest, high quality stuff. So highly recommended. I'm getting myself a backup. All right, that brings us to the end of the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. And of course, I want to hear from you. So have you tried Roseisle 12? What are your thoughts on it? Did you like it as much as me? Were you disappointed? Do you think it's good but too expensive? How much did you pay for it? You can let me know all of that down below in the comments. And you can also let me know what you want to see me review down the line. I will keep that in mind for my upcoming videos. Bye, guys.